Hey, what's up? Chicago and I back again here, and we're going to be doing a video today on something called Adversary in the Middle, which is an interesting way to do some attack for phishing purposes. And it's going to be a little bit different than your normal phishing techniques that you've seen before, where some of these different frameworks will create a phished web page or a template or whatever to be able to use in the attack. And a lot of times with the phishing stuff, an MFA will typically be said to be a mitigating factor due to the fact that not only would they have to be able to get the credentials through a phish of the user for logging in, but they would also have to gain access to either their email or SMS or phone, either through a SIM swap or something to that effect to get the MFA code to be able to be successful with it. So this one kind of bypasses that and shows an interesting way that they're doing it these days. So stick around and we'll get right on into it. Get popping. All right, welcome back. Chicago Ganai here. We're going to be talking about Adversary in the Middle. So typically when you think about your phishing attacks, a lot of time what you see is different frameworks. There's one called SET, Social Engineering Toolkit from David Kennedy. And that one I used for quite some time when I used to teach ethical hacking classes and such. And that was a good one. And you can register your own certificates to make it a little bit more legit and all that kind of stuff. But still, you either had to clone the site, host it on a server, and then make it as realistic as possible. So you had to have these HTML templates basically for all these different sites that you wanted to phish. And it was easy for investigative purposes, how to track down, you know, where the actual source of the phish page came from, because again, you have to host it somewhere, unless of course you're using data, what do they call it? I'm trying to remember now, I can't remember the name. But there's a way to do it where you just make the URL within the browser itself. I forget the name of it. Data URIs, that's it. This technique uses something a little bit different, and you don't actually have to have an HTML template or create any type of cloned site. You're simply a web proxy. You're in between the victim and the target. So in this case here, we're going to be doing one for just Instagram to start off with, and then show you kind of how to create one from scratch for it. To be able to understand this, there's a good site here I was looking at, and the tool we're going to be using is called Evil Jinx 2, not the first one, the second one. And this one explains it pretty well with this graphic. I kind of like how they did this here. So essentially what you're doing is you're making a request to whatever the site is that you're going to create with this Evil Jinx via what they call a lure. And you can see here that you're just essentially the person, the man in the middle, the adversary in the middle, and you're simply forwarding the request on to the actual server itself. Now the interesting part is that when it comes back as a response from Instagram, the legit Instagram, it's going to pass through me first, and then I'm going to pass it on to the victim all the time, capturing the credentials in clear text of what the actual person's credentials are. Then the real cool part comes where the victim then would more than likely, like I think with Instagram, you have to do a code. They send it to your email or something like that, so you have to do a code of some sort to be able to go ahead and get it. So in that particular case, that's what would actually happen in this case is they'll send you an MFA code to put in. The victim will go to it, put it in, and then send that request on to Instagram. And Instagram then would say, okay, this is legit. And again, I'm just passing it along. I'm not actually really doing anything at this stage other than just capturing some stuff. And then when Instagram says, okay, the MFA code is correct, they're going to issue a session cookie. And that session cookie is kind of what we're looking for. That's the crux of the attack. They'll send the session cookie. Of course, I'll grab it as well, and then I'll pass it on to the victim. So the victim's still going to log in, and they're still going to have a valid session. And as long as that person's in session and still in that Instagram, session in that case, I can go ahead and just replay that session cookie in my own browser and then be logged in as that person. So that's kind of the concept that we're going to be going over today. It's a really interesting attack. So the way I did this is first to kind of make this, to pull this off and make it effective, you first have to register a domain. It's probably smart to make the domain very similar to the target that you're going for. So Instagram, making it look somewhat like Instagram, with a 1 instead of an I or what have you. I'm sure people have done that already. But for me, just for demo purposes, I've actually just have a domain that I use for these kind of throw off things. I call it intelbytes.com because that's the name of my channel that I'm doing. And so you register a domain, and then I went ahead, and this is just my way of doing it. You can do it any way you want. I went ahead and I bought a DigitalOcean $5 droplet. I think it's $5, $5 or $10. I didn't really have much success with AWS. They kept charging me for things on the free account that I didn't know anything about. And it's probably my fault leaving certain things on, but they don't make it very clear to me. But either way, I wasn't really happy with the AWS stuff, so I canceled that and I went to this DigitalOcean one, and it was really easy to set up. So you just buy a $5. I just bought a $5 Ubuntu droplet, and that's what they call them here. Instead of like the Amazon equivalent would be like an EC2 instance or whatever. So I bought a droplet, and once I had that, I can then tie Intel Bytes to that by going to my custom name servers and using these 3 name servers right here for DigitalOcean. So now that intelbytes.com is tied to DigitalOcean. So then under once you've actually made the environment, so here you can see I've made the actual droplet, and all you basically would do is go to create droplet and then choose like, the $5 one or whatever one you want to do. And if you want to do Ubuntu or what have you. So for me, I did Ubuntu. And then from there, I did create and go down to domains and DNS, and that'll bring me to this. And because I'm actually forwarding, and sometimes it takes a little bit, maybe half hour or so, for it to show up. And so from this, I went ahead to my domain. I'm going to open it up here. And what I did is I went in here and added a bunch of A records. Now, with this Evil Jinx 2, there is what they call fishlets. Down here, fishlets, somewhere down here, usage. There it is. So these fishlets here, they have a slew of them that people have already made, but you can already make your own. And as I was testing some of these, I found that in order for some of these to actually work, I actually had to have a variety of different records, not just an A record. There were a couple, I think O365 is an example of one, where I actually had to create a IPv6 one, which is quad A there. But most likely, all you need to do is just make a bunch of A records. So as an example, here's what I did. So here's the actual IP address for, my server. And then here I just put, adfs.intelbytes.com, adfs.o365, www.o365, whatever it may be, because what Evil Jinx 2 is going to do is it's going to use Let's Encrypt to make a certificate for it. And sometimes it will error out if you don't have like every single A record that they're saying you have to have. Like there's so many different iterations of the name that you're trying to do, like this one here, login.o365. Some ones I didn't know I had to add in, but once I did add them in, then it did create the Let's Encrypt certificate just fine. So in this case, we're going to be doing the, you can see I got a ton of them here, Instagram. And I did an M as well for mobile, so if they're using the mobile version, which is likely. So you can see here I did Instagram.intelbytes.com, www. So I just made a bunch of A records, essentially, for pulling this off. And you would really have to do that before you run the Evil Jinx 2 one. Then from there, what I did is I started up the actual environment, and you can see right here. Oh, by the way, to do that, you would go to your project, and you would go into it here, and then you would go to access. And for me, I just used the console one here. You can set it up, on your own or whatever, but I just clicked launch droplet console, and then it registered an SSH key for me and all that kind of good stuff. And here we go. I'm now in as that droplet. Now, I've already created and installed this, but the steps to do that are listed on their webpage right here. So to install it, essentially, let's do it without Docker. You would then, it uses Go, by the way, Golang, so you would need Golang installed. If you don't have Golang installed, that would look something like right here, install Golang-Go. So if you're using that, if you're using Linux for this, that's where I would do it. And then from there, you can see here that they do an install git make, and they clone the Evil Jinx 2. Now for me, I did it as a global install, so all I had to do was type in Evil Jinx 2, or I'm sorry, Evil Jinx, and it brings it up. So to do that, instead of make, you would do this one instead. You would do make install. And then from there, you can just go ahead and run Evil Jinx, okay? So in this case here, that's how I installed it, exactly as they show it here. So if I go back here, all you have to do then is just type in Evil Jinx. It will then bring up the environment. Oh, it says here, failed to start on name server on port 53. So if that's the case, then sometimes I'll have to reboot to get it to work. So sometimes you'd get that, and you kind of need that running because it's going to be simulating the URL that you're going to be making. It's going to be make something called a lure, and the lure ID, I'll show you what it looks like here, is the lure would look like this right here. It would say create a lure LinkedIn, and what it will do is it will give you a URL that will be, you know, linkedin.intelbytes.com / some other weird, you know, string of characters. That's the one you'll give to your victim to be able to go ahead and log in and phish them. So that's the hope that we can try to do here. And the fishlets, like I said, there's so many that have been made already, but some of the newer ones I've seen, I think were here we go. Here's some of the newer ones: PayPal, TikTok, Coinbase, Amazon, Reddit, Twitter, Citrix, GitHub. Now I was successful at this one and this one to a point. Now I will say the LinkedIn one, LinkedIn actually seems to have some sort of mitigation for this, because when I tried it with the LinkedIn one, it noticed it as a suspicious site, and then it forced me to reset my password. I thought that was kind of interesting. So it didn't really work for me on the LinkedIn side, which is good. All right, so now that I've rebooted, let's go ahead and jump in, and let's see, hopefully, we can get into our environment here. Without an error. All right, excellent. So in this case here, we can see that there's a few of them that I've already enabled. One of them is Instagram, but I'll show you the commands either way. But there's a few of them that I've already went ahead and tried to create, and these ones that you see that are listed on this side are ones that already have a Let's Encrypt certificate that I've made, right? And I'll show you how to I'll show you the process to do that here in just a minute. But the first thing you'll want to do when you first start this up on this one here, and failed to start name server, it says up there. Hopefully it's not the case. Usually the error will be right here. First thing you'll do is you'll do the Fishlets host name, and you'll register the actual name that you've made as an A record. So in our case here, let's go back here to their page and kind of look at it from this side. So after I've registered my domain, which in this case I use these, first thing you'll do is you'll configure your domain. So in this case it would be config domain intelbytes.com. Once you do that, then you'll do the IP. In this case, it's going to be the IP of your DigitalOcean one that you have, because you've tied it, if you follow on my steps, to that actual domain, right? So it's gonna point to that. And again, it'll probably take a half hour, maybe even an hour, to successfully see it. It took about an hour for me for it to actually happen. But after that is done, you then create some fishlets. So in this case here, if I wanted to make one for LinkedIn, I would say fishlets, host name, the name of the one that I want to use, and then it would be whatever the A record is that you've made. In this case, it would be in Instagram.intelbytes.com for me. Now, if you want to see what the fishlets are, all you got to do is type in the command fishlets, and you can see the ones here, obviously, that you have available to you. Now, in this case, I've already enabled Instagram, but I can disable that real quick here. So I can say fishlets disable Instagram. And then now if I do fishlets again, you can see that it's no longer enabled, and I won't be using it for that attack. So if I wanted to make one for, let's say, PayPal. Okay, so we'll come in here, and I don't know what they actually require, but I'm just showing you the steps of how you would do it. Now, there may be errors, again, making the Let's Encrypt certificate. So actually, you know what? Let's do something probably, they probably have a lot of different A records. So let's go back here and see. Let's just do Reddit. I don't have anything for Reddit, so let's do that one. So I'm going to come back here and go to my domains part. And this is what I would do. I would say Reddit. And then right here, it says redirect to, and I'm just going to point to my actual droplet, which, as you remember, is tied to intelbytes.com. So if I create the record, it should say reddit.intelbytes.com right here. So create record, reddit.intelbytes.com. Now, I don't know if the Let's Encrypt certificate requires it be www.reddit, so we'll add that one as well. So we'll say www.reddit. Create that record, and then I'll probably do an M1 as well, m.reddit for mobile. Create the record. There we go. So those are a few, and if it requires more, it will let us know. So let's try it. Let's give it a shot. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this Fishlets hostname, Instagram, and we're going to tie the one for Reddit to reddit.intelbytes.com. Okay, so let's come back over here, and we'll say Fishlets hostname. If I can type it correctly, and we'll say Reddit. So we'll say reddit.intelbytes.com. Okay, so now it's made that, and then here I can actually make a redirect. In that particular case, I'll do that in the lures part of it there that we get to, when we get to that part. All right, so next what we want to do is enable that. So we'll say Fishlets, and this is usually where you'll see an error for Let's Encrypt. So we'll say Fishlets enable Reddit. It's going to enable it with that reddit.intel.bytes.com. If it needs more records, it will error out and tell you. So let's see what happens. So now it's requesting an SSL certificate from Let's Encrypt, so it's already built into it automatically, which is pretty cool. And we'll let it do its magic. Again, if it errors out, we'll see exactly what A records we're missing. And sometimes they'll ask for, like I say, a quad A. Okay, so in here, events.reddit, you see that right there? So it looks like we need that one. We may need a quad A. It looks like there's a win.reddit. All right, so win and events. So let's see if we can knock down these errors here. So we'll say win.reddit, add that in, and then events. Is it event or events? Can't remember. Events, okay. So then we'll come in here and we'll do events.reddit and create record. All right. So let's see, I won't do a quad A record yet. I'll see if we can actually do this with just this. So let's try to enable it again. And it will tell us if it was successful or not. And if we have to, we'll make a quad A, because it looks like I may need to do that. To do the quad A, by the way, in DigitalOcean, you have to enable IPv6 support. Oh, looks like we don't have to. So it made a certificate for us, and we're good to go. So now if we look at Fishlets, awesome. All right, we can see the Reddit one is enabled. See, just like that. All right, I don't actually have a Reddit account, so I won't be using that for the attack we're doing today, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it with Instagram. But let's take a look here and see what we have, because now we wanna create a lure. So we'll say lures. And you can see that I've already made some already for GitHub, O365, Outlook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And they give you these slashes here. Now, these ones aren't enabled, so you won't actually be using these ones here for now. What we want to do is we actually want to create a lure for the Reddit one. So to do that, you would say lures create, and then whatever the name of it is, in this case being Reddit. So lures create Reddit. And then look at our lures. Now, do keep in mind the number right here, the ID number. So ID number 5 for Reddit, and you can see it gives you the little path right here. So now what you want to do is you want to go ahead and get the actual URL. So you'll say lurs get dash URL, and then the ID number, which in this case is 5. Okay, so get URL 5, and you can see that's the actual address that you would give somebody. Okay, so I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to open up a different browser session here. Oh, actually, let's do a redirect as well. Yeah, right here. So I'm going to lurs edit 5, which is the one we created, and then just redirect it to google.com. Of course, you would do that a little bit differently, but it's all good. All right, so let's see here. Oh, it looks like we're already starting to get some traction here. All right, let me go here and edit this one, 5. Awesome. All right, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and make sure we get our ID, number 5. And again, I don't have a login, so I'm just going to put in some nonsense. But if we go copy, let me open up a different browser altogether. Paste and go. And there we are. So I'm just going to put in goober and password of doofus. Click login. Bing. It's going to give me an invalid, but if we come back here, bada bing, bada boom, pop, pop, pop. Another server drop. That will give us the actual just plain credentials. So if the site doesn't require MFA, this is all you need. You just need to have them put in whatever it is in this case here. So now that we kind of understand how to create these things, now we actually want to do a real working one. So let me close out of this. And I found that in this particular case, it'll give us those errors with the DNS deal if we actually try to do a different one in the same session. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but we'll see what happens. If it does, we'll just reboot the server. But for right now, I'm going to disable the Reddit one. Now that you understand how to create one. Doggone, man, I'm doing horrible with the typing today. All right, so you know, I got to get back into Evil Jinx. Now this may give me, nope, okay, cool, it didn't give me an error. Excellent. So I'm going to say fishlets, whoa. Fishlets, disable Reddit. See all the Reddit stuff coming through? Did I mistype it? Oh, I typed it twice. There we go. Excellent. All right, so now we shouldn't be getting all this nonsense popping up here. Cool. All right, so next one I'm going to try to do is I'm going to bring up the Instagram one. So I'm going to say fishlets, because I've done this already ahead of time. Enable Instagram. And we already have the certificate because we created it previously. So we're good to go on that. Now from here, let's go ahead and go to lurs. See what number they are. Okay, so number 0. So we'll say lurs. Actually, you know, I don't actually have a redirect, I don't think, set up for this. So let me do a redirect. And it just happens to be 0, so we're good. So lurs edit 0, and I'll redirect to there. All right. So I'm going to say lurs get dash ID and 0. Oops, I'm sorry. Lurs get dash URL 0. How about that? There we go. So that is the actual Instagram site that we're going to be sending people to. So to take a peek at it, let's go and look. And let's open it up in this session here. Paste and go. Boom, look at that. So this is the actual Instagram that we're going to be sending everybody to. But if you look up here, intelbytes.com. So to the untrained eye, the people that don't look for this sort of thing, usually they may just look at this portion and good with it. Now note also, they'll also be looking to see if it's an invalid certificate because that's obviously something they don't want to be seeing or whatever. But because we did a Let's Encrypt certificate, hey, it's encrypted. So we fooled them in that case. So we're banking on the fact that they're just going to go ahead and go for that. So again, you would send an email with this URL saying, this is Instagram, you need to update your account. We've seen you're dormant for a while, something like that. And then you let them log in. All right, so on this one here, I made a dummy account called I'm a Leroy Jenkins because I tried a bunch of different variations of it, and it wouldn't let me do a bunch of them. So that's what I decided to do. So it's under just a generic burner Gmail account what I have. And I don't care if you know the password because I don't really care because that's the intent of this. And I'm trying to remember what the password is, to be honest with you. I think it's I want some chicken. And those that those that know Leroy Jenkins will know what I'm talking about. Let's see if that's right. Oh, man. All right, let me pause the video for a second so I can look and see what my password is. All right, so while I don't really care if you know my password, I do care about the place I go to find my passwords, knowing that. So this is what I had put for the password. I just want some chicken. Leroy Jenkins. All right, so let's go and let's put that in, paste, and log in. So we should be good. Now, it probably will ask me for an MFA of some sort. Okay, so it redirected there. It did not ask me for MFA, which is odd, because I believe it should. But either way, we did get the token. So in this particular case, we can see here, I get the password, and I get the username. I get the mistyped password in this case. And you see right here, all authorization tokens intercepted. That's what we want to see, okay? So what we're going to do in this particular case is we're going to, let's see, let's go to, type in the word sessions. There we go. All right, so we see sessions, and we can see this particular one. You see how we had the Reddit one here and it had the username and password, but this one has the same thing, but this one actually has the tokens that we've captured. So in this case, what I'm going to do is go to sessions, and then the ID is number 26. Here we go. So this is the actual JSON for the session cookie itself. Now, what I would do in this particular case is go here. If you're in Chrome, this is what I would do, is I would install this cookie, this extension called Edit This Cookie. And so I'm using this one right here for this particular attack. So what you would do as an attacker now is you would go to Instagram.com, and you're at the login page. There we go. You're at the login page, and now we go to our cookies, edit this cookie, and we're going to go to new cookie. And this is not the right one. So this is not the same one. Let me get rid of this one. So edit this cookie Chrome extension. Cookie editor. That's the one I was thinking. Cookie editor. All right, so cookie editor is the one you want. It just makes, this one's actually a lot easier. All I have to do in this case is import the JSON, which is what I'll do there. So I just imported the JSON, which is this information right here, all of that. You copy all of that. And then I will say import. Cookies have been created. I now go and refresh the page and, oops, doggone it. I did the wrong thing. I'm on Instagram. Let's try that again. And I go to cookie editor. I say import, put in my cookies, import it. Excellent. Now let's refresh the page, and Boom. I am logged in as Leroy Jenkins. And that's really all there is to it. Now, as long as the person is still logged in, you'll be able to do whatever, right? And whatever nefarious deed you want to be able to do here. And if it's an account like a PayPal, right, or the O365 or something like that, now you can see how this opens up a whole different ball game here of different stuff that you can actually do. So it's a pretty insane attack called Adversary in the middle, which will allow you to do this. Now, you can also think about it from this perspective, company's perspective, that if it was a Twitter account or an Instagram account for that company, that person could log into it and say, hey, listen, and start putting all this weird, hey, the stocks have dropped 50% or whatever, and really affect the business that is the target. And they can just make up some stuff saying, oh, we were breached or what have you, and just make these fake posts. And the public who sees it will just be like, oh, geez. And the stocks will likely probably drop after that. So you can see they can do irreparable damage to a company, not only just capture people's passwords. Now, in this case, it didn't ask me for an MFA, but if it did, same thing would apply, which is weird because the first time I did this, it did ask me to enter a code in from my email. So I'm not sure why I didn't do it this time. But we don't really even care if they enter MFA because we don't have to know the MFA code. I don't need to know whatever 6 digits being sent to your SMS or email. All I'm waiting on is for you to actually log in with your MFA, and I'm waiting on that session cookie, the authenticated session cookie, come back from the target, and then I just replay it like this. So that's exactly what would happen in this case, is any MFA that you're doing, it's going to do that same exact thing. So it's a really interesting technique to do, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Until next time, peace out, players, and keep on popping.